outside of that. Though in there it mentions them about trying to kill off the holy seed, but now they got us killing off ourselves, whether through gun violence, abortions, etc. And when I say abortions, I'm not blaming the sisters, I'm blaming the men for us not being strong enough in our backbone to where this sister doesn't have to feel she has to go and get rid of our child. Y'all understand? We've got to start changing these things. If we don't, 100 years from now, our great-great-great-grandchildren will still be having this conversation that Marcus Garvey was having back in 1913. And the African continent, the Latin American continent, the islands of the Caribbean, they're waiting on us. Because you and I have the exposure to the technology, to the education, to the development, to be able to change the course of our people. If we don't do it, it will not happen. And that's why we use the Coptic Church. I looked and said, well, the Catholic Church did it by doing this, and that. And they got it from atonism, which comes out of Africa. So we're going to take this underlay and add our information over it and follow the same suit. They build a school, we're going to build a school. Their school has a cathedral attached to it, we're going to attach a cathedral. They got stained glass windows with some white guys on the window, we're going to get some stained glass windows with some black people on the window. And learn to reverse, we call it reversing the spell. Match what they're doing. Now we won't establish American football because it'll mess you up. Though we like watching it. I played it as a kid in high school. But certain things we can do and realize that I'm not going to live to see it all. Impossible. So you don't do it with that in mind. You do it knowing I'm going to do my part and make sure that the next generation is not just educated in school, but educated in who they are and their responsibility. Because it's oftentimes difficult. People ask, well, how do you keep doing it? Well, you realize you're obligated to the next generation. Because see, if Martin Luther King and Elijah Muhammad and Sheikh Dawood and Noble Drew Ali and anybody whose name I'm not mentioning, if they didn't do their part, we wouldn't have the conscious level that we would have been able to reach. Somebody has to be willing to say, I'm going to do my part. So everybody in this room, you're here in Little Rock, do your part. Your part, you might be a speaker, then you got to speak. You might be a musician, then you got to play the music. You might be television production, then you have to produce the documentaries. You might be a cartoonist, then you got to create the comic book. You might be a nurse, so you have to treat people when they're sick. And if you're a nurse, don't just stop at LPN. Go all the way up and become nurse practitioner. Go on up to become a physician's assistant. Go on up to become the doctor. Don't stop. You follow? Don't let people run the 2012 world's going to end. Okay, here's the reality. First of all, the Mayans never said the world would end. They said the end of ages. So let's get that clear. But second of all, okay, do you prepare to die or do you prepare to live? Because if a meteorite hits this room right now, do we really got to prepare? It goes boom, and we all go, and that's the end of it. So the people in Haiti, when the earthquake hit, the ones who died, did they have anything to worry about? The ones who lived, did they have something to worry about? So let's start preparing on how we are going to live in this new millennium that we're in. What are the choices that we're going to have to make as people to ensure our survival? You follow? Because we are an endangered species. Nubian Melaninites globally are an endangered species. We are being wiped out at an alarming rate. And if we don't recognize it, we won't be here in another 1,000 years. And it's not just through AIDS, it's not just through famine, it's oftentimes through our own hands as a result of not having love for that divine in him. I don't care if this gentleman agrees with everything I've said today. I really don't. He's still my elder. And I'm still going to see him and say, how you doing? How was your day? You need anything? If I have it, I'll help you. If I don't, I say I don't, but maybe we can work on finding it. Because if we can learn to live that way, we're better off. Is everybody clear what we're saying? Any other questions?
Which one of your books back there encompasses most of what you said?
The original books of the Bible.
We were speaking about Revelations, and you were talking about the two witnesses, with everybody emotions going over Troy and the one who break the...
Yeah, right. If you remember 2 nights ago, 2 nights or 3 nights now, because I've been driving, so bear with me. There was the execution of the gentleman, Troy Davis, who, no evidence, no gun, no anything. And at the same time, they were executing the gentleman who dragged James Byrd in Texas, Jasper, by his truck. And if you go back and you look at the prophecies of the book of Revelations, it talks about the death, the killing of the seventh sign. They talk about the killing of an innocent man. They did a whole movie on it with what's the guy, the young Kutcher, his wife, Demi Moore. Thank you. Look, if it's Nubian, I know all the names. White people are like, oh, okay. Demi Moore, she played it. It's called The Seventh Sign. And they're looking at the Bible codes, and they talk about when you see the sea spitting forth its dead fish, all the fish this year, since January of this year of 2011, the amount of fish and whale and dolphin and birds falling out the sky. And then they mention, when you get to that point, they talk about there was a new sign they found, the 13th sign of the zodiac called Ophiuchus. Look these up, Ophiuchus, Ophiuchus. And they talk about when you see these things happening and you see an innocent man put to death along with an unrighteous man, this is in Ezekiel, that you know the era has changed. So these are all prophecies. And now when I talk about the Bible, let me make this clear. The book of Revelations is an African book of prophecy because it mentions in Revelation 3:14 the Amen. Amen is Amun, one of the angelic beings of ancient Africa. Revelations is not called the Apocrypha. Apocrypha is the Greek interpretation. Revelations is the English interpretation. The people of the book of Revelations refer to it as the Injil. The word Injil is the word Istangil, or salvation. They admit, Bible scholars today, that it was taken out of what's called the litany of Re, of the sun. They say sun god, but it's really the guardian angel, the guardian angelic host of the sun. And how these prophecies are unfolding. They're talking about how the Earth's geomagnetic field is changing because the liquid metal in the center of the Earth, there's metal that moves, liquid magma, and it creates a geomagnetic field that is used to block radiation coming in from the sun, solar flares and things of that nature. It's been reversed. You've heard over the last few months how the planet has shifted, so much so that they had to repaint the airports as far as the longitude and latitude lines that the pilots look at. Like in Tampa, they shut down Tampa International. They had to move the numbers because the planet has shifted. Every time you have these massive earthquakes like what happened in Haiti and the tsunami in Japan, the earth is tilting. We learned in school, if you looked on your teacher's desk, you would see a globe, and that globe was always on an angle. It had a pole, rod running through it, and it was always on an angle. And they said 23.5 degrees, and they've admitted now the planet has shifted another 26 degrees, so you're now at 49.5, almost 50 degrees, the shift. When that happens, the waters rise coastally. In ancient prophecies, they learned that, like you and I when we were children and you would play on the seesaw, if you're on one end of the seesaw and I'm on the other end and you're up in the air and I get off, not that I've ever done this, right? And I get off, the person on the other end comes down. But they also, as children, basic math was inherent in us, that you would stand in the middle. You have one person there, and you could stand in the middle and just go and rock back and forth if you stood in the middle. I say that to say, if you look at across the planet, all of the equatorial regions around the world, between 9 degrees above the equator to 9 degrees beneath the equator, are where most of your sacred sites were established. Because they understood when the planet shifts, the closer you are towards the equator, the more likely your ability to survive becomes. Is everybody clear? So all of these scriptural prophecies that you see happening, these books were ancient records of you as African people. And someone doesn't want you to identify with those records, so because of their adding in their translation in Shakespearean tongue, thine and thither and whence cometh thou thither. So it makes us like, I can't read this. You follow? But when you get to the language of it, you realize there are things taking place in the world today that we need to become cognizant of. It's not the end of the world, but it is an end of an era. And that era or that age is changing. The Greek astrology refers to it as the end of the era of Pisces, going into the era of Aquarius. Of course, we know Pisces and Aquarius as Greek and Roman astrology, but in Talmud we had what was called solar biology, where we were able to identify the sign of going into the era of the lion, the man with the head of a lion. Revelations calls it the lion and the lamb will lay together, right? Which is nothing but the symbol of the Sphinx. The face of a man, the body of a lion, the feet of a bull, the wings of an eagle. The wings are no longer there. In the Sumerian or ancient Kushite Babylonian, they called it Enkidu, the four beasts of the book of Revelations. It represents the four cycles coming together. You're in that new cycle. And so all of these things are taking place. But the beauty, though there's a lot of destruction that happens, it's also the cycle where the original divinity, that is you, has the ability to rise back up. I didn't say you will. Only we will decide that. I'm not going to be, yeah, we're going to take them now. It depends on what we choose to do. If we don't grab it, as they say, grab the bulls by the horn, then they'll just keep ruling us. And we have no one to blame but ourselves. Any other questions?
Yes, this goes into the etymology of the word God. From my research, it took me all the way back to the Gothic. And then it explains about how the Gothics pretty much overran the Romans to the point that that's how the word God got involved with the Bible.
Right, good. The Germanic peoples. They talk about the Germanic peoples. Again, when we talk about words, right, with Africa's relationship to the scriptures, and we say in the beginning was the word and how words are important. When we use the word God from Gut, the German word, the Visigoths, the Teutonic peoples of France, they had their own ideologies and how they perceived the worship of nature and their Olympic gods of Greece, Hellenism, etc., how they perceive these things. And they've been able to succeed in putting it into the minds of Melaninite people. So we're calling on names, not that there is no, we say the Most High Heavenly One. I didn't say Most High Heavenly Father, I didn't say Most High Heavenly Mother, I said the Most High Heavenly One that possesses female and male attributes. I say that because when you say God in the Bible, Jehovah Jesse and Ojadi and or Adonai, all these names that have different meanings, some of these meanings are feminine. When you say God is nurturing, nurturing is female because she's by nature nurturing, by nature. When you say the destroyer, by nature that's man, because we're very destructive. If you follow what I'm saying, we'll chop down a tree to make a desk, but you still have to kill the tree. So that's destructive towards nature. So words like God, because of its gut, J-H-U-T, the Germanic or German roots of it, every time we're saying we worship God, we're actually giving power to a German spirit force, right? We in Talmud, we had Enne-Re, we had Nun, Nunet, we had Shango, Batala, and I'm using names, different tribes called their angelic relatives by different attributes. An attribute or a principle represents what you and I have the potential to become. Said another way, we acknowledge that we are composed of all of the elements of nature. From hydrogen, helium, Robine, niacin, all the way through Einsteinium. There's hydrogen in this gentleman. There's helium in him. There's oxygen, bromine. Some elements are a part of you. Some elements pass through the body, through your foods, through your urination, through your sweat, saliva, mucus, earwax, etc., or even the breath you breathe out. And we had angelic relatives or angelic teachers, females and males, who were professionals in their respective fields, so much so that when they expired, or died as you call it, we labeled their work after them, much like you do today, where you label Einstein's work after Einstein. Einstein's theory of relativity. Einstein discovered the 99th element for the Europeans, so it's called Einsteinium. Tesla uncovered quantum physics for the Europeans, so they have a unit in quantum physics called the Tesla unit. Well, that system that they're using today is what we were doing in ancient Africa. So we labeled the female priestess Tefnut because of her work as a preserver or a person who understood where we could find water to drill our wells and irrigation systems. We labeled that seat Tefnut. These were seats or principles or attributes like president, prime minister, mayor, governor, coach, etc.
That point being said, they also went into the definition of God as far as being invoked.
God as being?
Yeah, it's a verb that's being invoked.
As, I'm missing the last part. As being?
Invoked.
Invoked. Okay, go ahead.
It's also, and then it takes you further into libation. Yeah.
Because remember, when you say libation, okay, libation, because the Greco-Romans, they had Zeus, they had the other one, Jupiter, and then they had the wine bibber, which represented the second coming of Zeus, and he was called Dionysus, or Dionysus, they call him Dionysus. When you say, if you say Dionysus, say it. You don't hear it. Now say Dionysus. Dios, the new Zeus. Dios was Dio. Twice. The recoming or second coming. So when the Greeks, as Sister was explaining to you a little while ago, in Europe today, especially in Greece, many Greeks are returning to the worship of the Greek gods. Go to YouTube, Greeks returning to the worship of the Greek gods. They have a whole series on it. How all the Greeks are saying the reason they're suffering and their economy is collapsing is because they're worshiping Christian gods. It's time to return back to their original religion. And the people in Greece, doctors, lawyers, engineers, are going back to the worship. They're reopening up the temples of Zeus and Poseidon and other Greek and Roman gods. So when you say Dionysus, the wine bibber is the god of diagnosis, or the god of pharmacia, the pharmacy, the drug god. And that's what's ruling the world today. We have become a drug society. We pop pills for everything. And the pharmaceutical companies, there's drugs, the fluoride, everything else they're adding to the water we drink, the food we eat, the hormones, and it's causing a change in our minds. My wife always tells me, said, the mind has been reprogrammed? No, there's a word, Lynn, what's the word? Rewired. The mind we have been rewired. Why is it that Nubian Melaninites don't have this sense of we got to fight for this anymore? And I don't just mean conscious, I mean whether it's the NAACP are mostly older people. Rainbow Push, y'all understand? Why don't the youth, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, have this drive anymore? The mind has been reprogrammed, has been rewired in such a way because of this drug god, because of the alcohol and the crack and the cocaine and the ecstasy and the, what's the one they use now? That the kids are, meth and everything else that they got out there. The wine god, Dionysus, they call him the wine bibber. And all of their rituals were based on intoxication. You follow? And it's had an effect on us as a people. In South Africa today, everybody knows Mandela when he got out, Madiba, and he became president. But right now, the major problem they're having in South Africa is the same problem our Native American brothers and sisters had. They are alcoholics. The young people in South Africa wake up because they have no jobs, they have no access to development or whatever the case may be. They wake up and they are on the bottle in South Africa. Now, of course, most of us don't know or care about it because Mandela got out, and as far as we're concerned, everything's straight, right, wrong. No. Meanwhile, alcoholism is like at 70% amongst people ages 16 to 25 in South Africa today. And it's not just happening in South Africa. It's happening throughout Latin America. It's happening here in America. Look in the music industry. Hip hop used to speak against drug use. Now everything is about kush and about sniffing and about snorting. I remember when Melly Mel and them did the whole white lines. And they were speaking about not doing the white lines and how it blows your mind. Some of you are a little younger than me, so you don't know what I'm talking about. But this is hip hop from the 80s and the late 70s into the 80s. Now, everybody from Soulja Boy, everybody's talking about smoking herb and getting drunk and sniffing cocaine. That's not done by mistake. Because their little white kids got hooked in Nebraska and Iowa and Idaho on methamphetamine, which black folks didn't seem to gravitate to. So they got to convince you that it's cool to go back to doing drugs. So everybody walking around with Switch of Sweets and all these little drugs. I listen to the rap too because I got to know what you're talking about. But don't realize you're being rewired to go back towards drug use. We overcame heroin. We overcame angel dust. We overcame opium. We overcame crack. And now somebody through the music industry has tricked our young sisters and brothers that it's okay to pick back up the crack and the cocaine and it's cool. And you got all these rap videos with alcoholism and I'm not blaming the artists because many of them don't know. I'm talking about the music executives that are saying this is the song of the 50 you recorded, why this one? Why this one? Why, when the Nubian family was starting to come back together, why would they make, she got her own car, she got her own this, she got her own that? Why is that a hit? No, it sounds crazy, but someone is doing it. Social engineering. The mind is being rewired, and another 5 or 6 years, watch the drug epidemic amongst the black Nubian neighborhoods, the Latino neighborhoods. Somebody is using, because they understood music soothes the savage beast. The animal part of our nature is affected by sound. And those who understand that have learned to manipulate through the music industry, the television industry, the computers. They have manipulated it to where now we're losing our minds. We're doing things, because you're talking about God and good. Well, that was the wine bibber of yesterday. The wine bibber of today is the Ciroc in every video. Why is my 16 and 15 and 14-year-old son or daughter being exposed to some guy pouring Ciroc on another girl's butt and going, yeah, and smiling at the camera? The director that's filming, most of these directors that are filming the rap videos are Europeans. And they purposely are shooting that shot to purposely expose the mind of a child who's physically an adult. Because I got a son like this, and he's 16. Physically, he's big. But up here, emotionally and hormonally, he's still a child. But he's being exposed to something that's going to have an adverse effect on how he perceives women for the rest of his or her life. All of a sudden, all this homosexuality, bisexuality, was it GBLT and all these, Nicki Minaj, is she straight, is she not, and this person, somebody's doing this to us. And we're eating it up. And we think it's cool until it knocks on the door of our son or our daughter. You follow? Now, I'm not saying don't listen to music. I'm not saying go home and break up all your kids' CDs or their iPod and they be mad at me. What I'm saying is be cognizant by listening to what the youth are listening to. Be cognizant so you'll be able to address it. When I'm riding in the car with my teenagers, I got an 11-year-old daughter, 14-year-old son, and 2 16-year-olds. When I pick them up from school and we're riding home, I put on the radio. Which I want to listen to? Song come on. What is he saying? What does it mean? Sometimes they don't even know what it means. I don't know. So what that's saying is such and such and such. And my daughter's always, ew, Dad. Hey, I may not live to see you 18. I want to, but I'm no guarantee. So I got to tell you. So any guy who walks up and tries to convince you that that's okay, I want you to remember this conversation. You understand? Teach your daughters. If any brothers in here got little young daughters, tell them the truth while you have the chance. I tell my daughters, I tell them. The other night we went to Walmart, we got out the car, we started walking, she was on the other, come on this side of me. I said, if you're ever walking with a man, he lets you walk on the outside towards the street, leave him. Remember that. Teach her what to expect. Teach her about the game that guys run, that we all ran, right? Yeah. Except me, right? Right? Teach them now so they don't get caught out there. If you have sons, sisters, tell your sons the games that sisters run. Because I'm raising my sons and they're good kids. They're not perfect, but they're not street. And I'm going to send them off to college in another year. So I'm telling them, she's going to look like this, she's going to have that, she's going to do, and I ain't going to be there. So let me tell you the many variables of this thing. If you let him rule you, you're going to go to pee one morning and it's going to burn. Fire water. No, that sounds funny, but I ain't gonna ask somebody to raise their hand, but if you know what I'm talking about, just nod and wink or something. All right. Y'all understand what I'm saying? That's, again, this is the part of the church that a lot of churches don't want to talk about. But at the Coptic church, the whole, we talk, that's real church. Church assembly, kanisa. We talk about that other side. You follow what I'm saying? I remember a year ago, she was 10 then. She was acting up in school, giving a little lip to one of the teachers. I was like, wait a minute now, that's a black teacher. Time out. So I spanked her. Left the room. My wife was like, oh boy, she got it, huh? Yeah, she good now. Went back in the room, she writing a letter. I said, what? Dear mom and dad, I can no longer deal with this. I'm leaving. Cool. Hold on. Okay, what I say? Get the black bag. I gave it to her. Here you go. Take everything you think is yours, put in that black bag. I said, but let me explain something to you. You're 11 years old. 9 out of 10, you're going to end up in childhood prostitution. You know what that is? No. That means some grown man's going to take your panties off and going to want to mess with your poo-poo and your boo-boo. And it doesn't. So she was like, I said, so you still want to leave? No. I said, okay, good. Then we're on the same page then. Sit yourself down and do your homework. You got to tell the kids the truth. Because they think, I'm going to leave home and I'm going to do this. How many of us believe that and tried it? How'd it go? Hard as heck, ain't it? You get that first electric bill. What the hell is this? What do you mean how you going to bill me to pump the electricity and then bill me and then tax me? Anybody ever had that conversation with yourself? Tell the children the truth. Teenagers, take them shopping with you. Hand them the shopping list. Here you go. You grab a cart, I grab a cart. I want you to go get those items. Let them learn, like, damn, stuff is expensive. You follow? Give them allowance, and when you go shopping, say, you pay for that stuff. They give you that look. Well, you eat the eggs, don't you? Yeah, well, you're going to pay for the eggs this weekend. Sometimes I ask money, you got any money on you? Yeah, I got like $10 to pay for the eggs. And you're like, you're going to eat them, right? Right, we'll pay for them. My 11-year-old daughter, she's always trying to do everything for the older boys. And I keep telling her, you stop. I know you want to help. They're your older brothers. Do not do their dishes for them. I said, because when you do that, you're crippling 3 black men. That means 3 Nubian ladies later on are not going to have good men because you keep crippling them. Make your brothers be men. When it's time to cut the grass, you cut the little circle and you give them the acre. Why? So they can become men. And at the same time, that means you have to be a lady. So you got to learn from mommy latch hooking and how to sew and how to do herbs and how to do, and I don't mean weed herbs, right? And how to do things so that we can claim back our Nubian family. Tell your children the truth. Tell them about, I don't tell mine lies. I ran away from home when I was 12. These are the things that I did. These are the things I shouldn't have done. This is what happened to me in college. These are the good things about college. These are the not so good things you want. You don't want to do this and you don't want to do that. And this is why you don't want to smoke weed. Because let me tell you, when you wake up and your head's over the toilet bowl and you're throwing up and you wonder what's this green stuff looking back at me, that's not really having fun. You explain to them the truth. We got to stop living under this notion of trying to convince our kids we were perfect, because then they can't relate. Tell them the things you did, things you're not proud of, so that they don't have to make that same mistake. Because if you let them learn from their friends in the street, like most of us had to learn from our friends in the street, come on, y'all, how'd that work out? Didn't your friends give you the best advice? They guided you right? Wrong. All right? And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. If you have any questions while we're just hanging around, I'll be more than happy to answer. We have the table back there with some parchments. We're working with Brother Grover to try to figure a way to do this maybe once every 5 or 6 weeks, where we just come in town. And I don't just want to come and talk to you. We got to figure out how to get involved in the community. Try to do fundraising events or whatever the case is to try to help out some of the schools, because we have a lot of things that are available to a lot of our youth that they're just not cognizant of, or they just haven't been stimulated or inspired to take an interest in. Thank you for coming again. Namaste.